A man in Arizona signed his solar contract in 11 minutes. He didn't read every page. He didn't ask about the financing fees. He just looked at the number, the salesman circled in red, the one that showed his new electric bill at almost zero. 2 years later, he was still paying more than he expected, and his roof needed work the panels were now sitting on top of. This isn't a story about a scam. It's a story about a purchase that millions of homeowners are making right now, often without fully understanding what they're agreeing to. Solar panels get sold with a very simple picture. Sunlight goes in, savings come out, and the roof quietly pays for itself over time. That picture isn't false. But it's incomplete, in a way that only becomes obvious after the contract is signed and the first few bills start arriving. Because here's what almost nobody explains clearly before the contract gets signed. When you install solar panels, you're not making one decision. You're making three. You're buying an electrical system. You're entering a long-term financial agreement. And you're starting a new kind of relationship with your electric utility. Most sales conversations only talk about the first one. Rooftop solar is not new, and it's not experimental. Millions of these systems already sit on rooftops across the country, and the vast majority of them are on ordinary single-family homes, not experimental research labs or government buildings. The technology itself works. Sunlight becomes electricity. That part has been true for decades. So if the technology is proven, why do so many homeowners end up disappointed? The answer has almost nothing to do with the panels themselves. Picture two houses on the same street, same roof size, same amount of sunlight, same size solar system installed by the same company. On paper, they should get the same result. They don't. One household pays in cash. The other finances the system through a loan with fees folded quietly into the balance. One utility company credits exported electricity at close to the full retail rate. The other pays a much lower rate for anything sent back to the grid. One roof is new. The other will need to be replaced in 6 years, which means removing and reinstalling the entire system. Same panels, same sun. Completely different financial outcome. That's the part the sales pitch usually skips. Let's start with the bill itself, because this is where the biggest misunderstanding begins. Homeowners are often told, directly or indirectly, that solar will erase their electric bill. In most cases, that's simply not how it works. Even with solar panels producing electricity all day, most homes still have a connection charge to the utility. Many have a minimum monthly bill, regardless of how little grid electricity they use. There's the electricity used at night when the panels aren't producing anything. There are shorter, weaker production days in winter. And there's often a separate bill entirely, the solar loan or lease payment arriving every month like any other financial obligation. So the honest way to describe what solar does is this: it can reduce the amount of electricity you buy from your utility. That's different from eliminating the bill. It's a smaller promise, but it's the accurate one. Here's a piece of this puzzle that surprises a lot of people, even after they've had solar for years. Ask most solar owners what happens to their panels during a power outage, and many assume the system just keeps running, quietly supplying the house while the rest of the neighborhood sits in the dark. That's usually not what happens. Standard grid-connected solar systems are designed to shut off automatically during an outage. This isn't a defect, it's a safety requirement. Utility crews might be out working on damaged lines, and a home system sending electricity backward into those lines could put workers in danger, so the system disconnects itself. Which means a homeowner can have a roof full of solar panels, generating electricity on a sunny afternoon, and still lose power the moment the grid goes down. To actually keep the lights on during an outage, a home generally needs more than panels. It needs a battery, a specially designed backup inverter, and equipment that isolates certain circuits in the house so they can run safely on stored power. Without that additional equipment, solar and backup power are two separate things that happen to share a roof. There's another number worth questioning before we even get to batteries: the production estimate itself. Every solar quote comes with a projection. Something like an expected number of kilowatt hours per year, often stretched out into a tidy 25-year chart with a rising savings line. It looks precise. It looks scientific. And in a narrow sense, it is, because it's built on real modeling. But a projection is still built on assumptions. It assumes a certain amount of sunlight based on historical weather patterns, not the specific weather of the next 2.5 decades. It assumes the roof's angle and direction are close to ideal. It assumes nearby trees won't grow taller, and that no new building will rise nearby and cast a shadow across the panels for part of the day. It assumes the equipment keeps performing at close to its original efficiency, even though panels are known to lose a small amount of output every year as they age. None of that makes the estimate dishonest. It just means the number on the page is a model of the future, not a guarantee of it. The word worth listening for on any proposal is estimated. The word worth being cautious about is guaranteed. This raises a natural next question. If a battery solves the outage problem, should every solar homeowner just add one? Not necessarily, and the reason comes down to cost. Pairing a battery with a solar system adds a meaningful amount to the price, often more than $1.50 per watt of solar capacity, according to industry pricing data. That's a significant jump. In some regions, adding a battery has become far more common recently, largely because local utility rules change the value of exported electricity. When exporting power back to the grid became less financially rewarding, storing that power at home for later use became more appealing. Which brings up something else rarely explained clearly. The value of the electricity your panels produce isn't fixed. It depends entirely on where you live and which utility serves your home. This is called net metering, or in some places, net billing, and it's one of the least understood parts of the entire solar decision. The old image most people have is a meter running backward, giving you full credit for every extra kilowatt hour you send to the grid. In many places today, that's no longer how it works. Some utilities credit exported electricity at close to the retail rate. Others pay a much lower rate, closer to what it costs the utility to produce that power itself. Some use time-based rates that shift throughout the day. Some cap or expire credits after a certain period. Two homeowners with identical roofs, identical panels, and identical sunlight can end up with completely different financial results, simply because they live under different utility rules. That's not a minor detail. That's often the difference between a system that pays for itself and one that doesn't. Now let's talk about the number most sales conversations lead with, the tax credit. For years, a federal tax credit covered a meaningful percentage of qualifying solar costs, and many homeowners assumed it was permanent, or at least assumed everyone automatically qualified. Neither assumption was quite right, even when the credit existed. A tax credit isn't a rebate handed to you at installation. It typically depends on your tax situation and gets applied when you file your return, which means its actual value can vary from one household to the next. And here's something that matters enormously for anyone considering solar right now. Current federal guidance says that credit is no longer available for systems placed in service after the end of 2025. If you've seen older articles, videos, or sales materials describing that tax credit as an ongoing 30% discount, that information may no longer reflect where things currently stand. This is exactly the kind of detail worth checking directly, rather than trusting whatever a salesperson tells you in the moment. So far, we've covered the roof, the utility, and the incentives. But there's a fourth layer that may matter more than all of them combined: how you're actually paying for the system. Some homeowners buy their system outright or finance it through a loan and own the equipment themselves. Others sign a lease, where a solar company owns the panels and the homeowner simply pays a recurring amount to host them. Still others sign a power purchase agreement, agreeing to buy the electricity the panels produce at an agreed rate without ever owning the equipment at all. These sound similar on the surface. They are not the same thing. When a solar company owns the equipment, through a lease or a power purchase agreement, the homeowner generally doesn't receive the tax benefits tied to ownership. Some agreements have been marketed in ways that blur this distinction, which is exactly why financial regulators have specifically warned homeowners not to assume they're receiving ownership benefits under a lease. And loans have their own hidden layer. Some solar loans advertise a low interest rate, which sounds appealing. But that low rate can come from fees quietly built into the loan itself, raising the total amount financed well above the cash price of the system, in some cases by 30% or more. Two numbers that look nearly identical on the surface, the cash price and the financed price, can end up representing very different total costs. This is why comparing solar offers by monthly payment alone can be misleading. The real comparison needs to include the cash price, the financed price, the interest rate, the total of all payments combined, and any fees hidden inside the loan structure. There's also a quieter kind of risk that shows up years later, long after the excitement of installation day has faded. What happens if the roof underneath the panels needs repair or replacement before the loan is paid off? What happens if the original installer goes out of business and the warranty that felt so reassuring during the sales pitch has nowhere left to be honored? What happens when the homeowner decides to sell the house and the new buyer has to either take over a lease, pay off a loan balance, or walk away from the deal entirely? None of these questions get asked during a sales presentation. All of them get asked eventually. And this leads to a genuinely interesting contradiction, one worth sitting with for a moment. Homes with owned solar systems have historically sold for a premium compared to similar homes without solar, according to research covering thousands of home sales. Yet that same research also comes from an earlier period of the market, and outcomes for leased systems, or systems still carrying outstanding debt, can look completely different at resale. The same technology, sitting on two different roofs, financed two different ways, can either help a home sell or complicate the sale entirely. So what does a smart homeowner actually do with all of this? Not avoid solar. Not blindly trust it either. Instead, treat it the way you'd treat any major decision attached to your house and your finances for the next 15, 20, or 25 years. Start with the roof. Is it new enough and sound enough to support decades of panels without needing to come off again halfway through? A roof that's already close to the end of its life becomes a hidden cost most homeowners never see coming, because removing and reinstalling a full solar array isn't a small job, and it isn't cheap. It's far easier, and usually far less expensive, to deal with roof problems before the panels go up rather than after. Shading matters here too, and not just the shade that exists today. A single large tree a few years from now, still growing along the property line, can quietly cut into production that a homeowner was counting on. Then look at your actual electricity use, not a generic estimate, but your real numbers across a full year, including winter. Then find out exactly how your utility compensates exported electricity, because that single detail can quietly reshape the entire financial outcome. Then request both the cash price and the financed price for the exact same system, side by side, along with every fee involved. And finally, understand who actually owns the equipment, who receives any tax benefit, what the warranty truly covers, and what happens to the agreement if you sell the home. None of these questions require distrust of the technology. Solar panels work exactly as advertised. They convert sunlight into electricity year after year, with a gradual and well-documented decline in output over time, not a sudden failure. The real uncertainty was never about whether the sun shows up. It's about whether the price, the paperwork, and the promises attached to that sunlight actually add up in your favor. That's a very different question than the one most sales conversations are built to answer. If you'd like to explore some helpful resources, you'll find them in the description.